Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is May, and this is the third episode of the Pray and Act podcast. Today, I am joined by Dr. Humaira Shahid. Dr. Humaira Shahid has been a great inspiration to me ever since the moment I've met her. And the amount of knowledge that she has brought to me and the amount of inspiration that she brings to me every day is really no surprise if you look at her super impressive history that has got her to this point. Dr. Humaira has had a career in politics, serving in the Punjab Regional Provincial Assembly for 2 terms. After that, she has gone to the USA and she has done a fellowship at Radcliffe from the Harvard University, where she has received an honorary doctorate from the USA. Dr. Humaira has continued her career in Muamalat, where now she is actually teaching the principles of Muamalat. And later on in her life, she has culminated all of this work into her final lecture series called Spirituality and Sexuality, which she is now turning into a book. Today, Dr. Humaira and I are going to speak a little bit about her book and her work, Spirituality and Sexuality, as well as the journey that has brought her to this point. So, Dr. Humaira, thank you so much for being with me today. Um, I, of course, introduced you a little bit here, and what I really wanted to say to the listener is that you have started teaching spirituality and sexuality. And in a sense, I feel like this is a culmination of all the paths that you have walked in life and all the people that you have come to know in life. So I would love to hear in your own words, who is Dr. Humaira Shahid and how did she get to the point that you wanted to start teaching? What has brought you here?
Thank you, May. It's a pleasure to be here, and I value the opportunity to speaking to you and through you, your generation. I believe that spirituality and sexuality is one of the pivotal works of my life, and I believe that it accumulates all that I went through, all I learned, and I believe that I've reached a point where I can disperse this experiential knowledge for women to grow, for women to understand. So a lot of my work, which was in politics, was um, inspired by, of course, my commitment and my devotion to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and the system of Muamalat and restoring justice and equality. But I realized that the inward change, without the inward change, it's impossible to understand what really equality is and how do you correct it? How do you even understand the injustice around you? So it was quite a trial. So I believe that in spirituality and sexuality, I'm able to combine tasawwuf and muamalat. It's not only just a critique, it's a roadmap which emerges from my own experiential journey and how I learned how did I understand certain things that actually helped me outgrow my previous self and to understand the meaning. It fundamentally questions three things, like who am I? And this is a question not just for myself, but for everybody out there. Who are we? What is the meaning of my life? And then what is my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And I believe this is the central thesis of my book. And I deliberately chose two main domains, which is spirituality and sexuality, because I believe both of them are undermined. They have been misdirected. They have been debased. They come as exploitation. And in restoring the meaning of myself, my life, and my purpose and my existence, these two domains, I believe, are a very, very uh, important pillars because they are the ones that we are wounded through. They are the ones we are injured through. So spirituality and sexuality, as a lot of people, even your generation, thinks that they bifurcate. And my whole thesis is no, they run parallel. They are mirrors to each other. In order to understand, we ourselves have to come out of the fragmented definition we have attributed to ourselves and how much we have learned or but the narratives that are around us. So I think half of the book is about how you dismantle those narratives, how do you become aware of them, how do you destroy them, and how do you return to your essence, and what is your essence. So it brings back to the question of who you are, what is your relationship to this world, what is the meaning of your existence, and through that, how do you discover Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your spiritual aspect, and how does that relate to all other aspects of your life.
Thank you for the beautiful introduction. So, what interests me is you have worked in the Punjab Provincial Assembly for 2 terms. So, you have really started your career in this environment that I can imagine, even though there might be some females now, is still very male dominated. And it requires you to maybe put on a certain mask or to be a certain way that is, something you have to discover in that moment. So, how do you think that your career has kind of been the culprit for what you would later teach in spirituality and sexuality? What did you learn there that you have brought now?
I believe that by my 2 terms in the Punjab Assembly were mainly, I was very passionate about working for women and to question the structures, to question the fiscal systems, and the discriminatory laws that women go through. And I think I was able to create a very unapologetic, audacious voice in the parliament to address the rights of women, and particularly the rights given by Islam, which are not implemented or which are used against us. They're distorted and used against us. So for me, it's an experience of expose. Like you're out there in the world, you stand on the floor of the house and you make statements, and you question certain things. And I think it trained me to stand my ground. I think it trained me to be confident. It gave me the exposure of not to be apologetic woman. And I think I came at a time when the Punjab Assembly went through reforms, and we had a lot of reserved seats of women. So we had much more women ever in the history. And but to do something meaningful was something very important to me, and I picked up some social issues, some violent issues against women, and that included acid crimes, Wani, you can also call it Wani, which is a customary practice where women were given as a compensation for the crimes committed by their male members. But in doing that, I I think I entered into the forbidden area when I started questioning usury. I drafted a law and I moved it in the Punjab Assembly, which required uh, debate on usury, going into the system or the financial system of my province, which allowed usury. And then, without realizing at that time that this is a forbidden topic, and usury and the fiscal systems and the financial system is something that you don't question. So I believe that that strenuous struggle to not only debate on my law, but to get it passed, taught me a lot of things. It taught me determination. It taught me how to stand in the face of adversity, and how do you face opposition? How do you bring people on your side? How do you um, bring insight into issue which is not the priority of the politicians or the policymakers? So I think it did develop me into. It gave me strength. It gave me bravery. It made me fear less the controversy of something. And I realized controversy is good. Controversy gave me an opportunity to highlight the issues I wanted, and create debate on it. So I think it made me a brave person. But the inward leap, I think, happened in the later years. And that's what my book is about. Spirituality and sexuality is not just my external experience fighting in the parliaments and debating issues, and strenuously advocating for the rights of the underprivileged, but I think it helped me to understand what is my duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to understand the beauty and the majesty of how Allah, the relationship between man and God, and how much, I would say, how we have debunked it, how much we have forgotten it, how much we have lost that meaning, and to address the question of what is the meaning of my life or my purpose, or and how do I change the world through that. So I realized you have to change yourself before you change the world out there. You have to take away your own fears. You have to address all the deeper issues which you have been, putting inside the closet. You don't want to look at them, you don't want to address them, and you have to bring it all out there. And once you overcome through your experiences, then you can help others. So I think every step and every stage of my life was so meaningfully contributing to my work of spirituality and sexuality.
Right. So the book Spirituality and Sexuality, as you said, or the lecture series, because the book is not completely finished yet at this point, um, you can kind of categorize it in a sense. So there's a couple of lectures or chapters that are focused very much on the social structure, the family structure, and how that has changed and how that influences us. But then you actually start the book with something a lot more personal and inward, which is akal and Hayrah. So from that, I've also read a little bit, and of course, I've attended your series. And then for me, it really means that you have to understand yourself through practices such as, or through the cognition of the heart, through knowing yourself, through knowing Allah, through being able to do Hayrah. But you also need to understand what is happening in the world and what is wrong and how you're being deceived and why you might have believed that. So, could you tell me a little bit, how do you think that should be balanced? Do you think one should first go inward and try to know themselves, or is it important that you go out there and you try to understand the illusions of modern life and you try to dismantle them before you attempt to know yourself? Is that necessary?
Yeah,
How
I,
would
I
that
think
go?
you can't separate the inward and the outward. You can't separate your external reality from your inward, inner world. For example, if I ask you, May, uh, how do you experience yourself as a woman? Or what does spirituality mean to you? Or what sexuality would mean to you? Would you be able to describe it?
Maybe now better than before. If you would have asked me 4 years ago, no, yeah, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, before I was
Mm.
even a Muslim or knew anything about Islam, like being a woman meant absolutely nothing to me. Like the only womanhood or sense of being a woman I felt was that I had to look pretty. But I
Mm.
remember that I I always had this idea, like, why would I want to have children, for example? This was all before Islam. It just cost money and it's like a burden
It's a
and it will,
liability, yeah.
yeah. And then it wasn't until I became a Muslim, alhamdulillah, and I kind of am returning to my fitrah, that I immediately understood the natural disposition we have towards wanting children. So bit by bit, I think I'm reclaiming what it is to be a woman, or starting to understand. But on the other side, I think it's almost impossible to fully get there in this age, because I'm so bombarded by opinions of other people on social media,
Yeah.
and it's
So,
so.
so do you realize how much when you talk about sexuality and spirituality, it comes from the acquired narratives? So, for example, when I ask a young girl, what do you think about sexuality? It's almost every time they say how I have to look, how I have to behave, how do I have to come across. So this was the dilemma. This was the question that I was addressing, because is sexuality something that you see, or what you say, what you hear, or sexuality is what you live or what you act? So, do you understand the dilemma? Like, there is a whole concept or conceptualization of sexuality out there, which is distorted, maligned, debased, blown out of proportion. It's seen as indulgence, but they never understand it's something you are, something you do. So that is something that I address in my book. And then secondly, the same question, if I say, what's spirituality? So people immediately go into their heads and they start telling me it's something, it's a place of peace, it's a place where I can destroy my ego, or it's mindfulness. And so you realize how much it is acquired concepts, number one, and then how much you're trained to just conceptualize as something mental. So, spirituality is mental, sexuality is mental. Now, what is worse, man is mental, woman is mental, human being is mental. So, we become what we think, and we are not living our experiential reality. We don't understand the value of human experience. What we are doing is we are living in our thoughts. So, we live in our thoughts every day and we think that is life. So, do you understand how difficult it is for me? Because I cannot come to the question of spirituality and sexuality until I have recovered man as primordial, as fitra, somebody that is not contaminated in its perfect form. So how do you go back to that perfect form? You can only go back to the perfect form when you stop looking at yourself as an idea, as a concept, but you have the ability to look at yourself, your life, and your experience here with Hayrah. Now, what is Hayrah? Hayrah is something that happens in your heart. It's not something that happens in your head. Hayrah is the capacity to dispense preconceived notions. Like, for example, I'm looking at you and I can assume I know May. Oh, she's a girl of 25 years old. This is her history. This is her chronology. This is what she says. This is what she thinks. And in doing that, I am actually talking about the perception I have about you, but not the real May. Real May is cosmic, immense, vast, is huge, and is fluid and is changing and is evolving. But what I do is I reduce you, I fix you, I contract you according to my perception so that I can put you in a box that I understand, and then I label you, brand you as this is me. And what I've done is I've done, you know, abject injustice to you. So Haira is to how to transcend those boxes, how to come out of those narratives, the preconceived notions that we develop out of fear or out of indoctrination or out of our ignorance. And we are able to, I can here, if I do Haira on you, I have to stop going into my head. I have to go into my heart. And in my heart, I find a space that is expansive, that is free from prejudice, which can actually make me look at you with awe. And in that awe, I realize the immensity, the connectivity of everything. I realize there is a meaning, but what I'm doing is not conceptualizing, I am grasping it. So it's the cognition of the heart, and Haira is one way of the cognition of the heart, is different because because what man does is man does the same thing to the truth. So when man says, I define the truth, he's not defining the truth. He's actually caught up in the perception or his opinion about the truth. And then he attributes objectivity and he says, my definition of the truth is what truth is. No, it's your definition. It's not the truth. Truth is so much larger, immense, beyond your capacity. So that I have to make my readers aware of this trap, that the head is a trap. Anything that is preconceived, putting people into boxes, compartmentalizing man, like in a box of biology or anthropology or history or sociology. I'm not looking at human being with awe. I have destroyed, fragmented, put them into the boxes and reduced it to my understanding of it. So this is something we have to unlearn.
And this is why I was so excited to speak to you about this, because this world of boxing and categorizing, this is the world I come from. So for those of you who don't know, like I'm from the Netherlands. I'm from Rotterdam, and I grew up an atheist. Basically, the Netherlands is in a sense like the opposite of Pakistan. Like there is no religion, like not even like in France or Spain, where there are like hints of Christianity or Catholicism. Like it's just plain atheism. And I think that's stretches toward Denmark and Norway in these Nordic
Yeah.
countries most. So anyway, growing up, like everything to me was just a logical category, and I never even considered that Hayrah was important, like that letting go that doesn't even happen to people. Like
Mhm.
everything, all of life is just set out for you. Like I'm gonna work until I'm this age, then I'm gonna
Yeah.
buy a house. Like it's all already categorized for you, and everyone is living so small. But then at the same time, people are so comfortable there. Like they don't really seem to mind. And me neither. When I was there, I never really questioned it. I was just living like that. So how do you think like teaching people spirituality and sexuality could get them out of that if they're living in a world of complete nihilism and
Mm.
godlessness?
I think I'm not really trying to teach in my book at all. So the tone of my book is entirely my journey and my experiences, and how I narrate that, how I discovered this layer, how I discovered that layer. So I think it's more like vocational, and I'm invoking, and I'm trying to make people remember it, something they already have within themselves. So I think the tone is more about making somebody aware, and for example, what you said was like this mechanical zombie like existence where you want to become numb. But why do you want to become numb? Because you don't want pain. Because pain is something that you avoid. Pain is something that you can't deal with. Pain doesn't has a context for the modern man to understand, because pain is seen as abomination, as a punishment, as a judgment passing on you. So that whole idea of like, I am not going to look into the depth of everything. I think what I see is like a contempt and a fear of depth of anything. And what I'm saying in my book is the reverse of it. Like, go into the depth, go into the depth of who you are, try to delve into the meaning of your life, use Haira so that it transports you into, not into the ideas of things, but into, or representation of things, but to go into the meaning of things. Now this is a big issue, because what I'm really talking about is tasawwuf. It's like the Sufi approach of understanding something, which is like, you can't separate it from Islam. It's like going into your heart. In your heart lies love. In your heart lies fear. In your heart lies gratitude. In your heart lies awe. In your heart lies everything. Everything that is meaningful in the vortex of human experience is actually, we experience it in our heart. But we are not living it anymore. We are just conceptualizing. That's why when I keep saying that you are not loving the person, you're mentally loving the idea of love rather than loving that person. Because without Haira, without you being able to suspend the preconceived notions, which all come from your perception and your prejudice and your fears and your, indoctrination about things, you cannot understand the other person. And if you cannot, and even before that, I am asking my readers to go in awe for themselves, understand who they are, look at themselves with awe, so they understand their own dignity, they understand their own integrity, they understand that they are not commodities and products, they are spiritual beings. They have a, they have so many components that makes them a human being, and there's no point of compartmentalizing them. You gather yourself as a wholesome being, because you're spiritual and you're emotional and you're physical and much more, and together you experience your reality. So this whole idea of the modern way of thinking of compartmentalizing man, fragmentation of every experience, and then a mechanical way of how you should live, what career you should have, you should get married, then what your role is, and how you should deal with health, and how you should deal with philosophy, and how you deal with fashion. It's all dictated. It's not coming out of you. You are not. You are just following a conditioning, which is very much part of a capitalist system. I mean, what you buy today and how you look and how you project yourself is all actually dictated by capitalism. And we are not even aware of it. and we just see capitalism as a system. No, capitalism is not a system, it's a religion, because money has been attributed so much power. Money is like a god. The fear of losing money is the biggest fear we have today. So what has really happened to man? Something is deeply broken there. And until a man is not put together as a wholesome being, we will never be able to understand our own integrity, our own dignity, our own human experience, and the value it has. We will never understand our existence, our purpose of life. And if we cannot understand ourselves, we will never be able to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And this like fragmented distortion, because okay, so that it happens in a country like the Netherlands is more logical, because people, they don't have religion, they don't have Islam, so they will easier fall into that. But it's happening everywhere, basically.
Yeah,
Like
because it's the Western way of thinking everywhere.
it's capitalism that is
Yeah, of
causing
course.
it. Yeah, that is at the root.
Yeah. And what has done capitalism to women? That's another world. And what really happened in the name of rights and feminism and equality and justice. And because that's another thesis I have within my book, like why men are pit against each other, why there is this competition. I mean, and what kind of competition are we having with a man who's already defeated, beaten up by the system? I don't see any power with men out there. So do we want to reach that level, in competition? But he is already a victim of the system. So what are we really trying to gain? So it's not about just women, it's about the recovery of man and woman, and how that runs in parallel. That cannot happen until you understand you are a spiritual being, and you do not debase your sexuality. But in order to reach there, you have to recover the man, how he understands himself and his life. If that if you are stripped off from your self-respect, from your self-awe, from your integrity, you cannot ever understand your meaning.
So it's because man is in this capitalist system stripped from his fitra, and that's why he is not living his sexuality the way that he should. I actually got a quote from you. So in the book, you said he cannot fight the system, so he fights her, and he cannot control the outside world, so he seeks control inside the home. So men, they have this natural disposition in their fitra to lead, to be the amir. And if you look at that in the context of the Sahaba at the time of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this was a very lived reality for them. They would actually be the amir of the home, or maybe the community they were
Yeah.
living in. And now that doesn't exist anymore. So can you tell a little bit about that? And then I'm also curious to know, like, the woman is dependent on the man in this aspect, because if the man is not the man, the woman cannot be the woman either. So I would love to know a bit more
So,
about this.
but what I'm really trying to do is redefine patriarchy. Patriarchy, not in the sense of politics and feminism. Patriarch, the original word was the father, somebody. And who was that father? The father that protects, the father that provides, the father who takes the responsibilities of the values of that family, the father that, gathers and is like a he builds a home, he builds a safety place for his wife and children. So that role, when it is stripped off, because if a man becomes weak, and what I mean by weak is he has no authority over himself, over his family, or over his community, then you have a very weak man. So the whole idea of that man is stripped of its authority, and the state replaces the role of a father. And we have experimented that. So the state steps as the father of the family, and with single mothers out there, I think that formula has failed. The father could not be replaced by a state. It's not about how much money you have about raising a child. It's about, I mean, there are so many factors, because you see, you have to understand, even that woman, in order for the capitalism to thrive, you have this 50% of the population which was not part of the workforce. So the workforce was glamorized. Woman was was sold um, freedom in the form of having a career. So, but that career was later on, the women realized it was not freedom. It was, she was even more crushed by the system because she had a domestic role to play as a parent and as a caretaker. Plus, she becomes part of the corporate world or the workforce. And she has, so the woman gets tired because the woman is overworking. The woman has so much responsibility. And the man, on the other hand, because the family structure and the marriage structure has destroyed because there's so much divorce, or women and men are not getting married. So, any children out there under the care of a single mother with this illusion that the state is the father, it has not worked. It took 2 decades for women to realize that we are overworked. We can't raise children alone, and this it's not working. So women said, why should we have children? They don't want to have children anymore because children are seen as liability, and they're not just seen, they feel like a liability in this system. You need two incomes to run a household. How can a woman work and be and do the parenting of the children at the same time? So you have a life that is on lease. So everything is on lease, your job, your car, your house. You don't get any benefits. You have no acknowledgement. And raising a family is not just about, you having adequate finances. It's about the security and the safety that a man brings with his authority. He's the provider, he's the protector, he helps the woman to raise children. And woman gets subsistence from man, and man gets subsistence to woman. But when that relationship between man and woman is broken down, is despised, is stripped off from its value, then you have actually destroyed everything. So, how are we paying the price today? We are looking at extinction. We are looking at certain countries whose demographic rates have fallen to the extent that even if every woman has 5 children, they will still not recover for the next 50, 60 years. So, we are looking at a family structure that is completely destroyed. We are looking at a man stripped away from his authority as a provider, as a caretaker, as a sustainer. And we have a woman who's stepping into the role of man and woman and who's extremely exhausted. She can't do it anymore. So that is like the end of having children. There's no point of having children. So that's what we are looking at today. So something is terribly wrong there. How do you and this competition between man and woman, this has to be um, this has to be understood, that this is not benefiting anything. This is capitalist making man compete with a woman, and woman has to return to her fitra, and man has to return to his fitra. And together, if we restore this basic family unit, then we can restore the community. Otherwise, there's no hope.
And so the state has replaced the man. What does a woman and a man in their fitra look like? Like, what is the state doing now that actually belongs to the community or to the
I
family?
don't think state is doing anything. I think the state is just transferring and exploiting socially, economically. I mean, from health to fashion to everything that we do today is so much in the capitalist framework. It has nothing to do with the happiness of man. For example, let's go back to the basic understanding of happiness and success, which they keep on selling. So, who's happy today? Who has more money, right?
Mm.
And what is success if you have more money?
Or if you're famous.
Or what is sexuality if you can actually buy things and make yourself look beautiful to the standards that they have dictated, and you can amputate your body in that in the process. They don't care because this is the standard of beauty we have created. You need to, in order to do this to fit into it. So that's pure self amputation, both of men and women. So success, happiness, freedom, everything is dictated by capitalism. It has nothing to do with the welfare of man. It has nothing to do with the fitra of man. It has nothing to do with the harmony and the balance and the beauty of the relationship that man and woman are supposed to have. So it's all destroyed. So how do you recover? I mean, man, tell me, how do you feel when you look at the mirror?
A
And
lot
be
of,
honest there.
yeah, like a lot of judgment, and it's very physical. It doesn't go very deeper than
Deeper,
that.
exactly.
It's really like physical, and then
And no matter what you do, you have this standard back of your head
yeah.
that you have to fit in, because beauty is what they tell you,
Mm.
success is what they tell you. You go against the flow of what they have dictated, and you will be termed as failure.
But is it then even possible for us to return to our fitra in this system? Should the system not go first for us to be able to return to that? Or is it actually possible to have a man and woman in their fitra in this system while at the same time maybe fighting it, or being aware of it?
My thesis is there cannot be any change until you realize that you have a ruh, your ruh, that illuminated part which comes from the divine breath, that part of you which is indestructible, indomitable, is full of light. When are we going to understand that we are ruh is the integral part of being a human? So you have body and you have ruh, you have nafs and you have ruhaniyat. That 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 two aspects have to be understood, because even with the nafs, in the world of nafs, and what I mean by the world of nafs is and everything that you experience on a sensory level, which is through your five senses, and the sixth one is of course your ability to rationalize. We are so caught up in it, and we have made it so shallow, even the world of nafs, because there is a meaning in it. Allah is giving us these sensory experiences because it leads to enriching our understanding and our understanding of ourselves and our world. But we even when you look into lots of the way they educate, even in the Islamic groups, it's so kind of a bifurcation between the world of nafs and the world of ruh. No, the nafs is there because it enriches you in a way. It teaches you how to experience life. Uh, Nafs is not something to condemn. Nafs is something to understand and has a sacred part to it. And the same nafs, when is purified, when you master over it, when it doesn't override you, but you are the one who controls and can reshape the nafs, then you are escalating in the world of ruh. So nafs at its lowest is dark, but as the nafs becomes pure and elevates, it's changing into pure light, which is ruh. This is all coming from the basis of tasawwuf, and so with that kind of understanding, that there is nothing to condemn, except that you don't have to be in your head. You have to go into the world of your heart. That's where the cognition, the akal lies. That's where Hayrah lies. And then when you look around yourself, you realize nothing is devoid of meaning. Nothing is devoid of sacredness. So I'm asking you to look at the world, which is sacred. But here, man himself thinks he is something that should be damned. He's abominable. So a man who doesn't look at himself with awe and respect, because he doesn't understand that he is a ruh. He doesn't understand he has a journey. He's come from somewhere, which we call Arasta Birabbikum, where we testify that Allah is our Lord and we are going to return back to him. But what we have done is that we've forgotten that aspect of we being a light being, we being a ruh, and we are going mad in circles trying to make sense of life in a godless paradigm.
And how do you think social media is maybe making this worse? Because you're saying that we if we were to all understand ourselves as a rule, or even start to understand that, everything would fundamentally change, because even just acknowledging that within yourself kind of opens up something for you. But if that is completely absent from you, and you're just nuffs, and you're just trying to impress people or live up to the standards that you think you have to live up to, um I think nowadays it's getting even worse, because we're kind of developing a second nafs on social media, which is
Mm.
like this extra mask that we can put to the world to make it seem like we are even more or better than what we actually are. And at the same time, people are getting more ill, like mentally ill, because of
Mm.
this. So, what do you think social media is doing then?
I think when you don't have your grounding, when you don't understand who you are, when you do not give the respect you owe to yourself, you feel eroded. So what is happening with our younger generation is, despite that they're born Muslims, despite that they become Muslims, you are eroded because of all these influences. So media is just an instrument. It just bring back exposes whatever we believe in and whatever we hold as priority, or so um illusions, I would say. All the illusions that and media is a machine that creates illusions for us. So anyway, so you are eroded. We are all eroded in that, and that happens because we don't have a grounding of understanding ourselves, and that is not possible until you stop your head. You have to come out of the prison of your head. So in order to for that to happen, you have to become aware of it first. Why am I thinking all the time? Whether it's validation, or whether it's beauty, or whether it's what how I should live, whether I should have a career or not. So we've been dictated everything of how we look, and how should we be educated, what kind of career we should have, what kind of toothpaste we should have, what shampoo we should use, what hair cream should we use. Everything is dictated, and we are following it without understanding. And and beneath all this narrative is, you are inadequate. You are not enough. You are faulted. You are deficient. This is the echoes that is going on, and it has driven women mad for validation, for being noticed. So it's a kind of a torture. It's a kind of perdition that we are living in. So where does it all go back? How do you become aware of you? So there is absolutely no way around that you can overlook these three questions of who you are, what is the meaning of your existence, and what is your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So where do you start? You start by training people to get out of their heads. Because the moment you get out of the head, as the head goes down, the heart goes up. When the heart goes up, its heart has its own paraphernalia. It's very, very different from the head. You start feeling peace, you start feeling grounded, you start feeling expansion, you start relishing things. We are, when you live in your thoughts are all nightmarish, because they're coming from a narrative that makes you feel inadequate and deficient. But the moment you go into the heart, it's another world. It's beyond the world of ideas, and I know it's very difficult to grasp, but it's something that I am sure we all experience glimpses of it here and there, but we don't know how to stay in our heart for long, and that's where you need the training. And that's why, then when you learn to be in your heart, then your prayers, your your understanding of things change. It's depth is something that you relish instead of avoiding. Then you can look at anything that is frivolous, which you think, or lacks meaning, actually brings out its significance. But what has really changed is just that you're not looking at and trying to understand it with your head, but you're actually doing it with your heart. So the heart, how do you bring back the heart? You bring back the heart by changing the way people look at themselves. We have to teach Hayrah, and I know it's a challenge, because it's so difficult not to think today. Even I think the prayer is a challenge, because if you're doing a salat and the only thing you do is think over there and you've not tapped into your heart, then we have missed the benefit of the prayer. So that's the challenge. So that's why sexuality today is a concept, spirituality is a concept, loving is a concept, everything is a concept. So how do we deconceptualize this society? That's the whole thing. And that's why we need a new way of thinking. Or we already have it. We have to remember. We have to remember it.
And what I think is so sad in a sense is, if you look at sexuality and the fitra of man and woman in the more classical works, like for example, what Ibn Arabi says about the fitra of man and woman and the relationship between them, um, and then you look at what has become the role of men and women in Islam today, it's also so distorted, especially for women, like what they're supposed to be according to Islam. in the capitalist framework. It
Mm,
has nothing to do with true sexuality in a sense. It's a very domesticated
mm,
role, as if women are not at all involved
mm.
in the workplace, as if women are like these very passive beings. Like, how did we even get to a point that that happened
This
within
is the
Islam?
process of desacralization. By that, I mean the sacredness of a certain thing has been taken away. So that's happened across the board. I mean, Muslims or non-Muslims, we live in a world where uh, man is not sacred anymore. His life is not sacred anymore. His intimacy or his relationship with women is not sacred anymore. So, what Ibn Arabi is saying that this relationship between man and woman, this intimacy is so beautiful and so meaningful because in loving each other, you are loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, your love for each other could be the biggest realization of how you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not a love story between a man and woman. It's a love story of three. And between man and woman is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you love through Allah, you love for Allah, and you love by Allah. And it's all like in so the but the problem is before I even bring this this idea to them, you I have to make them come out of their heads in order to really truly love. Because if you're loving everybody as a mental process, then how do I make you even see if you can't even love yourself? So it takes me back to the hadith that to know yourself is to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when in awe you recognize how huge, immense you are as and not as a commodity, not as a product, and not as a service, what the capitalist system says about you, but as a locus of where Allah's light manifests. I have not seen anything more beautiful and full of awe. What, as Ibn Arabi says, who is man? Man is a locus of Allah's light, where Allah manifests His light. That just gives you goosebumps. That just makes you see how immense and meaningful we are. So when we restore our own meaning, then you can actually truly love a woman or a man, or recognize. So one of the things that I really want people to understand is what is the meaning of love. What is love? Love is not like building illusion and fantasies about the other person. So in that case, you're not loving the person, you love the idea of the person, and that idea has nothing to do with that person. It's coming from you, how you think about the person, and what kind of illusions or fantasies you've attributed to that person. But then you can truly understand somebody by recognizing. Allah says, I created man because I wanted to be recognized. So Allah wanted to be recognized. So our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, both of love and knowledge, is about recognizing who He is. And how do you recognize? You recognize with your heart because you experience everything that He's bestowed upon you. And that can only happen if a man is grounded, understands that he has a qalb and he has a ruh, and he's not just physical person, bifurcated in different boxes of definitions and brandings. We have to just return to our grounding. We have to understand we're a ruh, and we are going through a lot of human experiences. Each of us experiences pain, loss, happiness, love, aging, disease, death. It's all part of human experience. So our existence here in this world is about going through this process of being human. These human experiences are vortex of understanding of what it means to live in the form of human. But we are more than that.
And I think also for me, like through loving Allah more and more, you also begin to understand that love for Allah is so different than love for creation, and you can kind of put each of them in their place. And the more you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the more you understand the vastness of yourself. And it's actually a parallel process, because you start when you start to understand that you are in fact a ruh,
Mm.
you also start to understand that you have no idea who you are. Like,
Yeah,
I have absolutely no idea who I am. It's precisely this defining
yeah.
that is limiting me so much. So the more I say I don't know, the more I lean towards Allah, and the more you are protected there in a
Yeah.
sense, and you can kind of make sense of the world
Mm.
around you. And then the love that I expect from my husband, for example, or the treatment I expect from people I live with is very different, because I have that protection with Allah, so I don't seek that from the world.
Yeah. So, what you're really saying is that when you feel loved by Allah and when you love Allah and that is your grounding, then all other things are not need based, because all your needs, you direct them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then whatever you have is, you are contented with it, you value it, you look at it as gifts of Allah, and with gratitude. So that clingy need based relationship that you have with things and with people, and which actually leave you much more empty and suffocated. And it does again to the other people also, that you lean on. So it's a very unhealthy relationships, because the intensity and the passion that you have to pour in your relationship with Allah, when that is directed towards other things or other people, it is very, very misplaced, because it will never be reciprocated. You cannot ask a man to love if you put all your intensity and passion in it. You will, he will fall short. So that intensity and passion was made for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, if you love your children or your parents or your husband, when you love through Allah, and what I mean through Allah is that you recognize the source of love is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, I love my children, but these children are a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are not my possessions, they are not my extensions, they are not anything I understand. They are whole beings in their own, with their own destinies and immense rules beyond my comprehension. And they are a gift for me, something I'm not supposed to hold, capture, and control. And I experience the love of Allah through them. And I realize they come from Allah, they return to Allah, they belong to Allah. And the source of my love, why Allah has placed that love in my heart for my children, and why my children have that amazing love for me. But that is just a manifestation of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's the source of that love. That changes my equation. Then there is nothing to hold on to. There is nothing to grab. There is no desperation attached to any relationship. Like, my children must love me, children must love me. And when I say I'm loving my children, it's more about self-love and my need to be loved than anything else. So all that goes away, because you are not misplacing the love of Allah and the intensity and passion that belongs only to Him in your relationships with your children and your spouse. Love belongs to where it is. The first relationship man had was between Adam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first creation was the creation between the Khalik and the Makhluk, the creation and the creator. That is prior to anything else. And then the second relationship is that Allah made Eve come from the rib of man, which is like the feminist thing, like she's the second creation. No, she was part of Adam. They were one split into two. So now that they are split, they have this strange attraction between them to come back as a whole. But in that coming back of a whole is not complete without the love of Allah. So man and woman in fitra are attracted to each other, because she comes from him, and he is her home, and she is the missing part of Adam, which he longs to be united with. So that attraction is so beautiful. And this is the love that Allah has put between him and her. So this is their fitra, not competition, not who's better and who's not, not even trying to see I am different and he's not. It's just the missing parts that desire to become whole. And this is what Ibn Arabi says, that coming back together, that act of love that unites man and woman together, is not complete without its divine meaning. So the source is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Between the love story is Allah, and how man sees a woman's love as a manifestation of Allah's love, and how a woman sees in a man uh, the love and the protection of Allah. So it's so meaningful. But when you strip it off of the meaning of that relationship, you take away the sacredness, you devoid it of any spiritual significance, then it's a complete distortion. How do you recover from that? You are not looking at all, not only love as an experience and the most meaningful experience you're going to have in this existence. And I just don't mean the love between man and woman, but loving other creatures, loving Allah's creation, loving your children, your parents, your friends, everybody. We are all connected with this thread of love. So the DNA of the creation is love.
I actually wanted to bring that up. Like when I was listening to your lecture series, one thing you said just is always echoing through my mind, which is the DNA of the universe is love. And in a sense, or I can completely relate to that because we have this innate love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which hopefully everyone develops. Like it's the most beautiful love you have. And if you've tasted that, you would know. And then also at the same time you question like why why I'm not with Allah, you know, like he's my greatest love, like why am I not with him? And then you look around and then you realize that everything around you is his manifestation of his love for you, like all the
It's the
people.
ayat of the Quran where Allah says, wherever you look, you see the face of Allah. But
Exactly.
then, how do you see the face of Allah? I really, really understand that when I see the face of my child, that love that overflows from my heart, it's heavenly, it's holy, it's not part of this world. What I feel for my husband, and that kind of connection, but it's so spiritual in nature that I go into awe of itself. But then again, it only happens when you actually love yourself and give dignity to yourself. But that can only happen in the heart. You have to come out of your head. You have to stop punishing yourself. You have to stop this reductionism of yourself from a heavenly creature to something so mundane, ordinary, beaten, dejected, broken. And that will only happen if we awaken the hearts. And what do you have to do to awaken the heart? The only thing you have to do is to invoke the heart. Have you ever spoken to your heart? Have you ever looked at your heart? Just look at your heart, invoke it, feel it, and it's there. And the more the heart, it's like a sizzling feeling you have in your chest. And the more the sizzling feeling, you know, starts manifesting, everything else goes down automatically. The nightmares you have built upon, the insecurities that feed on you every day, all the fears, all the torments, you realize, oh my God, so much this society has that gave to me, I internalized. And then the society isn't even not doing it anymore. You are doing it to yourself. You are self bashing yourselves every day. You have become much more cruel than that society. So invoke your heart, become aware of it, and love without fear. Like Rumi says, love outrageously. So love outrageously means that you have the right to love. You are made to love. And when you experience love, and that love is so nourishing, there's no way you would want to return to the self-created nightmares of your head.
It's like talking about this now I feel like on fire, you know,
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
like you I think especially talking out loud about it with you, it, it brings it more to reality for me, even
Yeah,
though it's something I know, but just speaking about it with someone else, you kind of snap out of
yeah.
the falsity that you're always in. So and then it becomes even crazier to me, like realizing how much everyone is just trivializing themselves and how much of a waste that is. So that's why your work is so important, and I just hope so many people read this, and I even hope that like people I know in the Netherlands who actually are not even Muslims will read this, because I'm sure that something in them will respond to it, you know, because you're speaking
Yeah.
to who we are on a deeper level. So
I think what I also am able to map in my book is what happens if it's a godless paradigm. So, this whole idea of like godlessness in yourself, in your world, in your life, in your relationships, it starts becoming a nightmare. And then it brings you back to the fundamental question that there is no meaning to anything what we live and experience and see and believe in without the divine aspect. So there you can try looking for meaning without the divinity. And I challenge you, you will not find anything meaningful.
You would
But
just
then,
find
yeah,
ideas.
yeah, ideas, or those ideas becoming nightmarish, because these ideas are not replenishing you, they are depleting you of your vitality, of your meaning. So it's not going to help. You can try and you will fail. The only thing is, like, I have been created, I'm not a mistake, and I'm not an evolution that emerged out of certain species. You have to change the worldview, and you have to change the view about yourself. So this is my challenge. Go and try finding a meaning without God. There's only madness. And that's why you become eroded by the system. You become easily indoctrinated, and finally to be exploited, to be used and disposed. And there is no, and I see that in your generation, and I see that in the West also. There is a big hunger for spirituality, and that hunger is coming from the meaning. I cannot live on antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills forever. I cannot live an autopilot life. I cannot be mechanical and zombie anymore, because they tried. It still hurts. It hurts because it is amputation of yourself. It is an amputation of your life, of your being. You cannot live like that.
No, I completely agree. I think that the world is coming to a point of such nihilism that there is going to be some kind of, for lack of a better word, mass awakening, because
Yeah.
I really see it now with people my age. They're really like, what is happening? Because I also think for the first time in a couple of generations, within the capitalist system, we are the first generation to really suffer
The
its
extreme consequences
consequences.
of
Like the
capitalism.
generations before, they were kind of able to take
Still
the
have a
benefit,
house, or
yeah,
still
or
have some kind of
take benefit.
stability.
But now we're living in this capitalist world, which is very nihilistic in itself, and then on top of that, we're not even getting the material benefits. So then it's like,
Yeah, everything is collapsing. Actually,
yeah.
everything is collapsing. But more than that, I think the more your world becomes shallow, the more your desire to have a meaning excels. So I see people are questioning things. People want spirituality, but the problem is the misleading and the pseudo spiritualists who are taking, this wave into this mindlessness. I mean, it's again in the head. So actually, spirituality, by spirituality, I mean the discovery of the heart and the cognition of the heart, not pseudo spiritualists, and not pseudo psychiatrists, and not the pseudo psychologists and sociologists who come on, take you back to the head. You're back to square one. So, head, it's the battle between the head and heart.
Yeah. And the difference in that is also, if you are just trying to feel good in your head, then you're not actually living, because when you
No,
awaken
you're
your
living your
heart,
thoughts.
your actions
Mhm.
will change. The way you are
Yeah.
change, the way you are with the people around you will change.
See, gratitude is something you feel in your heart and shows in your actions, not in your head. Love is something you feel in the heart, and you manifest it in your action. The same way, um, reverence. All these are actions of the heart. They are in the domain of the heart, not the head. But then we have to intellectualize. We are an age that over intellectualizes everything, and we have to come out of that habit.
I think we've gone over a fair bit of your book.
I think it's just a brief introduction.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to tell you there is another way of, another world of experiencing life and yourself and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, there would be so many other things we can go in the depth of to make your generation to understand. Don't make the mistakes that we did, you know.
No, I want to thank you first of all for like taking the time to write this book. I remember like what I really love about your teaching style is that it's very graspable and it's very relatable in a sense, and it's something you can directly it's just something you can directly relate to. Whereas some,
New experiences.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very relatable, and that's what I really really loved about your work. And then I also really want to thank you for coming to speak with me. So for anyone listening, Dr. Humaira will be, inshallah, soon releasing her book, but she also has a whole lecture series on spirituality and sexuality. And if anyone is interested, I could share the link with them if that is okay
Yeah.
with you. They're all recorded. So I really highly recommend that you check that out. I will leave all the information for that in the description below. And if you've watched this video, I also want to commend you because it means that you understand that there is something not completely right with the way Islam is taught today, with the way we practice Islam, and you have somewhere in you that desire to know more. And we are here for you at the Muamalat movement. We are here to help you, to give you more answers. So please feel free to check out the description and to reach out if you want to know more or are just curious. So thank you again, Dr.
My
Humaira.
pleasure.
And assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.